Welcome to October, everyone. It is that time of year. I've been looking forward to my October reads since I finished last October, and that is because I get to choose all my horror books to read this month. I love reading horror. I'm so excited to choose some new ones. I've got my bookshelves behind me, plenty of horror on there. I feel like maybe the way I want to do it this month is initially I'll choose 5 books to start with. I know I'm going to be reading more than 5, but I feel like that's a good beginning point. Let's choose some horror books. Let's get started. And then probably mid-month, I'll come through and I'll choose some additional books to replace the ones that I have read. Before I go through the books that I am voluntarily reading, I'm going to select one from here so that I can continue to get books from my library cart onto my bookshelves, onto my TBR. I'm pretty much just gonna go through until I select a horror book from here, and then I will choose 4 more that I am planning on reading this month. So we'll start here. Question is, how many am I gonna have to pick through until I get a horror one? I've got a lot of horror on my shelves. What's that? 4 free, what? Fear and Trembling. No. It sounds like it should be horror, but it's not. That's a fat one. What are you? Lolita. That's a different type of horror, but not what I was thinking. I'm doing really bad at holding the piece of paper in the middle of the screen. The Rabbit Hunter? The Rabbit Hutch. I don't know what that is. Let me find that. So I could not find that, and that was not in my horror section, so I'm guessing it's not horror. Empire Falls. Nope, that's not horror. Oh Lord. This is gonna be I already know this is gonna be a really long video because I'm gonna read lots of books this month, but what? Something Mom. Mom and the Sea. Oh, The Old Man and the Sea. No, not quite what I was expecting. Oh wait, I did open this towards me, but that works. Dracula. Boom. Bram Stoker's Dracula. I have read bits and pieces of this, and I believe I've read watered down versions of this when I was younger, but I never read the actual original Dracula. So that's exciting. Ooh, cool. I read something recently where the main character's name was Wilhelmina, and she was like, oh yeah, I've heard every sort of Dracula joke there is, which I did not know there was a character whose name was Wilhelmina. Transylvania. In England, Harker's fiance Mina. I also just watched Nosferatu, which sounds a lot like this. Is Nosferatu? I thought Nosferatu was older than Dracula, but this sounds like the same thing. Where a solicitor arrives from a big city, he's got papers to sign for this older gentleman who's secluded away. He starts falling sick. He has either a young wife or a fiance back in the city. This sounds like the same. Oh, Van Helsing is in here. But there's also a doctor, an older doctor in Nosferatu who knows a lot about this vampire business, who helps the young solicitor along. So is Dracula equals Nosferatu? Let's go ahead and choose the books I would like to read and then put all those back in. Shoot, did I just put Dracula back in? Dang, I think I did. I did not mean to. I don't remember what color it was. Oh. Uh-oh, oh wait, no, it's gone. It disappeared. Oh well, all right. Let's get choosing. All right, excuse my little pop-up head here. I feel like I'm a meerkat that's looking around. These are my 2 horror shelves. So horror, this, and then pretty much from here to here. So first and foremost, I do have this one, Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is a book club pick that I'm going to be reading in 2 weeks. So I need to get this one out of the way. I've mentioned before Grady Hendrix and I did not like the only book of his I've read. I absolutely loathed it, but I really want to give him another shot. So we're going to do that with this. Next, I'm kind of tempted to do one by an author that I always confuse with Grady Hendrix, and that is Riley Sager. I've got a few books of his, but the one I'm looking at is this. The only one left. This is supposed to be like a haunted house sort of book. Riley Sager, Paul Tremblay, and Grady Hendrix. I'm always confusing the three of them because I feel like they released very similar books all around the same time. I think this is about a woman who goes to take care of a stroke victim at this weird house, and the stroke victim may be a criminal, not mastermind, but I think the only one left from a family a lot of people think that she murdered. So also freaking gorgeous cover. I apologize, this is such an awkward camera angle. I'm trying to show you guys the whole thing. This has been on my TBR. I'm trying to see if there's any other horror book that I've had longer than that one on my TBR physically here, and I'm not seeing anything. So I feel like this needs to have its day. Okay, so The Ruins, you may have guessed it, is about ruins that are found in a jungle in Mexico, but they're weird plants. I think it's carnivorous plants, or the people who live and protect these ruins get violent. I think they made a movie adaptation of it many years ago. I don't think I ever saw it, but I think I saw the trailer. So that's kind of a longer one, slightly longer. So I kind of want to choose a shorter one, a shorter, quick one to maybe balance things out. And I'm leaning towards these three. No, I don't really want to read a Stephen King right now. The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Clare, The Slob by Erin Beauregard, I believe. I just got this on my shelf. It might be a waste not to take advantage of the fact that I was just able to read a book, so I could in turn read this book. However, I'm really curious. I'm leaning more towards this, but I just got this on my shelf. This, I'm going with my gut. I've got a longer book that I feel like is going to draw things out. I want something short and fast and quick. This. I can always come back for this because I know I'm gonna blow through these. I always do that in October. I read a bunch of horror books. So we'll start with those 5. Welcome back. It's been a few days and I have successfully completed my first book, which is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Yep, I finished it. I will start by saying this was a huge improvement on the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. When I read that one, I think I gave it 1 or 2 stars. I want to say 1. This was 3 stars, so it was fine. I think I've just determined that Grady Hendrix might not be the writer for me, which is, it's not anything against him or his writing. You have to really enjoy, I think, satirical, campy stuff, and I don't a lot of the time. So this book is about exactly what it sounds like. It's about these final girls, which are notoriously the only living characters from famous slasher films, and they all attend a therapy support group session together every month. They've been doing so for 10 plus years, and they all come from really imaginative, over the top, bloody tragedies where some man has put on a mask made of human skin or risen from the depths of the water, something like that. He's found them at a camping retreat or a summer holiday or a cabin in the woods, and he's killed their whole family, all their friends, until it is just him versus them, and somehow they emerge victorious each time. And this is quite traumatic, as you might imagine. So they, along with their therapist, meet and kind of understand each other and get what they will from these sessions. We follow, I think, five or six of these girls throughout the book, but the main character, the one that we get the kind of the point of POV from, is Lynette. Lynette's family was killed in front of her eyes, yada, yada, yada. She is not the most likable character. None of the characters are particularly likable starting out. They kind of reminded me of when horror movies create the most obnoxious, just like, please kill them type of characters, because they want you just to enjoy, the director wants you to enjoy this as like a bloody, gory, fun, violent thing, rather than growing attached to any of the characters and having any sort of emotional connection. It's like every movie about a group of college students who are actually played by actors in their 40s going on this road trip. It was giving me very much those vibes, those very immature, very like quick to anger people that you don't really care if they live or die. It got better. That definitely improved. These group of women did start, as kind of danger presented itself to them, gathering together and protecting each other and becoming more important in each other's lives, where previously they had been annoyances or pests or something like that. I've given you pretty much no plot. Essentially, this is about someone is coming after these final girls. They start dying. Someone is specifically targeting them, and they need to band together. They need to support each other. They need to figure out who it is, because there's a lot of suspects. A lot of people are either obsessed with them or hate them or blame them for their deranged family member being in jail. Figure out who's targeting them and take them down. In the end, I think this book was just trying to do too many things without fully committing to any of them. It was talking a lot about the toxicity of true crime and violence against women, and satirizing horror movies, specifically slashers. But at the same time, it felt like everything it was mocking, like if Scream was made into a book, and maybe it is, I don't know, that's what this would be. And it was just the duality of that. Is like you're trying to say so much about this genre, but the piece of literature you're making about it feels exactly like one of the things you're trying to comment on, I guess. And that just I didn't really get the point of it. The main character initially really wasn't rooting for her, really didn't have much sympathy for her either, even though she's been really traumatized. I think the author wanted her pretty unlikable starting out, and then you kind of begin to sympathize with her as she puts some effort out into the world, which I thought was great. I really was fearing that she was just going to stay this really unlikable character throughout, and she did grow, which is awesome. I've read so many books where in the beginning I'm so hopeful. I'm like, they're doing this on purpose just so we can see their full arc, and then the arc never happens. No. Luckily, it did happen in this one. But for all the themes I think that the book is trying to hit, it feels like a pretty shallow book to me. If you like that type of book, and there's nothing wrong with that type of book. Sometimes those are really fun, quick reads. I I didn't really get into it that much. Again, I gave it 3 stars. I liked it. It wasn't anything mind-boggling. None of the twists and turns really hit me all that hard. The book club's guide to slaying vampires, we started off as low as you can get, and we are creeping higher. So maybe by the time I get to like Horror Store, maybe we'll hit like 4 stars. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I have started The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I have yet to finish it, but I think I just like this author's writing style a lot more than Grady Hendrix. They both go into it with very different intentions, and he goes into it, I feel like, very seriously, which I like more, I guess, in my horror. This is about a girl. Well, she's not a girl. She's a 30-year-old woman. And what's her name again? What's your name? Kit. Kit is a home health care provider. She goes around helping people who, usually older people who can't take care of themselves anymore. And she's had some sort of recent tragedy in her life that has affected her work. And I'm not sure, it hasn't said yet what happened, but there was an investigation done into her and she almost lost her job for it, but she managed to keep it. However, her boss really wants her to quit. He's done with her. It feels like she might be a risk in the future for him to keep on. So he's doing everything he can to convince her just to turn in her 2 weeks and say, I'm done. So he sends her to Hope's End, which is a very famous castle-like mansion on the side of the cliffs. And the house is really creepy and it's kind of slanting down. Everything's at a slant. And it's being dragged slowly closer to the cliffs every day. And everyone knows that one day it's just, everything's gonna fall into the ocean. Now this place is notorious because the woman who lives there, Lenora Hope, Hope's End, Lenora Hope, that checks out. I'm gonna say that is her last name. She can't move. She's had a stroke, I believe, and she can only move one of her hands. She's been this way for many, many years, can't talk. And she is known from local legend as a woman who has killed her entire family, possibly and probably. She was never convicted of it. The police never found evidence, but she is the only one left from that night. Everyone else was bloodily murdered. Her sister was hung. Her mother and father were stabbed to death. And everyone is convinced that she did it. So no one wants to go up there. There's lots of local legends, lots of local rhymes that children will sing on the playground, like we did when we were younger, that actually has like really grotesque and dark backgrounds. Kit can't lose her job. There's tension at home with her father. He blames her for something. We're not sure yet. So she can't go home. She doesn't have money. She doesn't have many prospects for other jobs. And she's like, you know what? I've got to do what I got to do. I'm going to take care of this woman. And that's where we are currently. I'm guessing she's going to discover the secrets of the house. And is this woman really responsible? What happened to her family? But this one is going really well so far. It's very atmospheric. It's a very creepy house, how it's been described. It kind of reminds me slightly of Shirley Jackson, how she describes haunted houses. There's just this kind of foreboding uneasiness that I really enjoy. So yeah, this one's going great so far. I'm about halfway done. So hopefully in a few days I will be able to finish this. And I'll let you know. I'm headed out. I gotta go pick up some trash. I'm gonna go kayaking and pick up some trash along the river. So I don't think it'll be safe for me to listen to this as an audiobook for that, but maybe tomorrow I'll be able to finish it. So I will let you guys know, let you know then. And for now, I'm gonna go out and enjoy this lovely October weather. been a few days and I have successfully completed book number 2 of this month, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This was an interesting book in different ways, good and bad. I believe last time when I had previously left off, Kit had just arrived at Hope's End at the house. She had met Lenora, this kind of notorious figure from everyone in the area's childhood. And Lenora decides that Kit, she's going to use Kit in order to tell her story. She's finally ready to either confess or give up the person who had murdered her parents and her sister so many years ago. She's finally ready to talk about it. We're given dual POV. So initially we're learning everything from Kit as she comes into this house, as she meets Lenora, as she meets the other caretakers of the home, the groundskeeper. As with all creepy mansions in horror books, odd things start happening in this house, and Kit has to try and deduce and investigate who might be responsible for this and who might want to hold something over Lenora or threaten Lenora, or is Lenora the one responsible? Simultaneously, we're given chapters from Lenora's point of view in her past as a child, growing up in this house, kind of her relationship with her family, where things started to go wrong, tensions in the family, and we're slowly creeping towards the night that everything went wrong, the night that everyone was killed, and learning the truth of it. It felt kind of like Riley Sager was in a competition to set a record for how many reveals and twists and turns he could fit into one book. And a lot of them worked really well. A lot of them bordered on being ridiculous. But the more that he created, the less impactful a lot of them kind of felt. Honestly, it's a fictional horror book, and if you go into it with the mindset that I'm not going to take it too seriously, I'm going to have fun with it, then you probably will have fun with it. I think I'm going to give this 3 stars. This is always what happens when I do my October reads, when I read my horror books. I feel like I almost hold them to like a slightly higher standard than all my other books. The last several years, I feel like all the horror books I've read have just been like fine. They haven't been crazy exciting. They haven't been really disappointing. Except for so far this. Because I started reading this. I'm about a third of the way through. This is The Ruins by Scott Smith. I've wanted to read this for a long time, and I'm kind of wondering why now I was wanting to read this so much. So this is about 2 American couples who go on vacation to Mexico. I believe they're staying there like a month. A few of them are about to start new jobs. They're about to start residency. So everyone decides, let's go on a nice long vacation. Let's lay along the beach. Let's drink a lot and just kind of decompress before we start these like new lives. They become friendly with some other tourists in the area. One of these tourists, his brother has gone missing, and the brother is really starting to worry about him. He supposedly fell in love very quickly with this girl he met at a bar. The girl is part of an archaeological dig at some temple, some ruins in the middle of the jungle. His brother left to be with this girl. He hasn't seen him since. So, as an excursion, these 2 couples and this brother, whose name I cannot remember, as well as another Greek man who's just kind of along for the ride, doesn't speak English, none of them can communicate very well. They decide they're going to hike out into the jungle. They're going to see these ruins, and if they find the brother, even better. If you could get an award for ignoring red flags, these characters would be gold. No one wants to take them to these ruins. Everyone is trying to warn them away. The dogs are trying to warn them away, like the animals won't get close to it. The people turn really unfriendly when they find out where they're going. The road going to this dig site is like covered over, and it's very clear that someone was trying to disguise it. But they decide to persevere, and they're going to go, even though half of them are really drunk and dehydrated and not in the best mindset to do this probably. They get a ride there. They don't have any idea how they're going to get back. They might have to hike 15 miles back through the jungle. They're not great at thinking things through, which kind of sets the tone for a lot of the book going forward. Long story short, they arrive at these ruins, and there are men who live around the ruins who are kind of seemingly guarding it. They've got bows and arrows, and they very much do not want these travelers to go onto the ruins. They do it anyway, and they discover the brother is deceased. He's been shot with arrows, and there are really creepy vines that are growing all around these ruins. Characters are getting injured. They're now trapped there, and everyone's dumb. It's not to the point of characters in horror movies where they're like, okay, everyone split up and check a different room. They're not that bad. Like some of them, one of the guys seems to have some sort of common sense, but it's the women. It is so stereotypical of how the women are written. They're completely useless characters. All they do is scream and kind of gaze into space doing nothing. They have to be prodded into helping at all. All they do is ask the men for guidance. One of the characters' nicknames is Spacey Stacy. It's such lazy writing. It's so reductive. It's so typical. I'm really like losing patience with them as a group. The writing as well is just not something I am enjoying. We're getting everything from these characters' heads, and every minute thought that passes through their heads, we get like 2 paragraphs on. This, I really think, would benefit from more editing. I feel like half of this, you could split this in half and it would be the same story. It's so descriptive, but over really insignificant movement and thoughts. And it's just not adding anything to the story. So yeah, I am struggling with this one. Maybe it will get better. I kind of doubt it, but we can be hopeful. The plants, which, I mean, let's be honest, they made a movie out of this. I don't know how popular it was, but the creepy plants that are plastered all along it, I think the jacket kind of describes them as being kind of the main villains or the antagonists. Like, okay, that's interesting. I haven't read too many books about, I'm guessing these are maybe like carnivorous plants. I'm not sure if it's going to be like slowly poisoning them, or if they like eat them up eventually, or if they're sentient. I'm not sure, but that's a great idea. I love the setting as well. But the characters are just so lacking. The writing is not very good. So I don't know. I feel like this might end up being less than 3 stars. This might like break the 3-star streak and dip down, but I'm going to keep on. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, and maybe it will improve. Progress has been made. The Ruins by Scott Smith is complete. Thank goodness, because I was so ready to be done with this book. I did not enjoy this. The things that I complained about in the first third continued in the last 2/3 of the book. A lot of it just got worse. I did not like these characters at all. I don't know why. There are so many books with such unlikable characters in them that I've been reading lately. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely a place in books for purposefully unlikable characters. I mean, it makes sense if you're just gonna end up killing a lot of them off. to investigate and explore more desperation in humans and how we act in violent situations when we might face potential death, stuff like that. But it doesn't make the reading experience any more enjoyable. They're just, like, I complained about it before, but I'm gonna do it again. Specifically, like, the men in here had their issues, but like, one of the men, like, his weakness with it is that, like, he was too good at survival. Like, it was weird how good he was, and like how he handled himself and how he knew what to do in all these situations. And the implication was that maybe he liked this adrenaline rush a little too much, which in the world is falling apart situation that they found themselves in, what a weakness for this guy to act like so logically. But the women, on the other hand, oh, I'm just so sick of seeing women just in these horror movies and books that are so, they're treated like children and they act like children and they're so helpless and they're so hysterical all the time. And like, again, as far as with the unlikable characters, I'm not saying you can't create female characters who are like that, but it's just, it's so tired and it's so contrived. And I've read these characters 50 times before. Like, the two women at one point get in a shouting match, and the things that they're shouting at each other, I don't think I can say, I don't know if I can say on YouTube, I don't know the rules, but like, are just, it's like, has the author ever met a woman before? Like, these, I didn't like it. I did not like this. I will say, because I tried to see the good and the bad, characters were awful, but the antagonist, the villain, the Vines were very creepy. That was done great. They did really unsettling things. There was a lot of body horror. There was some gore that like turned my stomach. But for this specifically, because I hated like all the characters but one, and this is like the one character we get the least about, there was so much more bad for me. Like, I disliked this book way more than I liked anything about it. I can't believe, now that I've finished, I'm like, I can't believe this was on my TBR for so long. Part of me thinks that like the author specifically made them really unlikable because their deaths kind of reflect in some ways their weaknesses and how they lived and how they reacted to things. But I think I just might be like grasping at shadows there, just trying to give it some sort of more meaning than it had for me personally. On a brighter note, I'm gonna start The Salt Grows Heavy today. I do have this available as an audiobook. I think it's only 3 hours. It's a really nice day outside, so I'm going to take a 3-hour hike, listen to this, hopefully finish this, and then I need to run to Trader Joe's. Other than that, it's gonna be a good day. I've finished The Ruins. It is pretty much the opposite of the weather yesterday. It's very cold and wet and dreary. Not that I mind. the weather is finally cooling down, and there's something really nice about cold, wet autumn days that I just find comforting. I have my matcha, I'm at home, warm inside, I'm ready to relax, I'm ready to talk about some books, so let's do that. On my walk yesterday, I was able to finish The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. Now, the only other book I had read by this author was Nothing But Blackened Teeth, and I specifically remember really enjoying the writing style and the language. And both of those things were very distinctive in this book as well, but not necessarily in a good way. So this follows two major characters. We have a mermaid and we have a plague doctor, and they are leaving their previous kingdom where the mermaid had married the prince. But this follows a lot of the kind of original darker grim fairy tales where the prince may not be so nice and the princess might not get her happily ever after. Early into the journey, they come across this village full of young boys that's pretty much being controlled by a few older characters who are promising these young boys kind of a life that they're this ideal life, but they can only get it through blood and pain and mutilation. And it's about these two characters who kind of get caught up in this. The story is nice and short and sweet, which I absolutely loved. I just wanted a quick horror read. The language was really inconsistent in this book, like epically inconsistent. Some passages I thought were really poetic and really beautiful. And then a lot of other passages. The best way I can kind of describe the feeling of reading this book is it felt like before the author had even had an idea of what the book was going to be about, they were given a list of 500 random words and said you need to include all 500 words somewhere in this book. A lot of the word choices feel really forced and really unnatural. And then there are some really beautiful passages, so I'm not sure what happened. I think I gave this 3 stars. I was originally going to give it 2, and I think I ended up bumping it up because there were things I enjoyed about it, but the language choice often kind of ripped me out of the story. I do really like darker fairy tale retelling, so that brought me back to it a bit. It's a very mixed bag. I can see why some people would love it and some people would really not enjoy it. As well, I did go ahead and choose my final 2 books of the month because after this one, I still just have Dracula. I've got over a week left still in October, so I'm gonna try and fit 2 more books. And I thought, why not add Paul Tremblay, who, like Grady Hendrix, like Riley Sager, I talked before about this, like the trifecta of men who write horror that I always get them confused. Why not add one of his books as well? I know this was made into a movie by M. Night Shyamalan. I haven't seen that movie. I think it's about a family vacationing, and then it's like these strangers come and start knocking on the door and claim that they need to kill them in order to save the world, something like that. So that should be interesting. Last but not least, The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I can't go another autumn without reading one of her books. Did I read one of her books last autumn? The most recent one of hers I wasn't crazy about, and it was the first book of hers. I've read, I think, 6 or 7. The first one that I wasn't like 5 stars, 4 star, 5 stars. So I'm really hopeful for this one. I think it's like a Red Riding Hood retelling set in modern time. There's like a plague or some sort of apocalyptic event. Neither of these books are that long, so I don't think it's going to be that difficult to fit them in. And then I also just need to start Dracula because I have not started that yet. But I was going back and forth between if I want to listen to an audiobook and if I want to read that physically. I think Audible has a really nice full cast version of that, so I might check it out. I might go back and forth, who knows? But that's the update. And once I get into those books, I will let you guys know how it's going. I hope you enjoy your weekend. We're coming back on this absolutely gorgeous fall day. The leaves outside are changing. The air is really crisp and clean. It's like 50 degrees out. I'm absolutely loving it. This morning I did go to my local farmer's market. I believe today is the last time before they close for the winter. Stocked up on some stuff, and mistakenly I went when I was hungry. They always say you shouldn't do your grocery shopping when you're hungry, and I absolutely did. So I got some stuff that's not so healthy, but who cares because it looks super delicious. On a completely separate note, I have made progress on my final 3 books of the month. So, Girl in Red, I have finished. Cabin at the End of the World, I'm about halfway through, and Dracula, I'm about a third of the way through. So, let's talk about Girl in Red. The cover is absolutely amazing, if a bit misleading, because I thought there was going to be more magic in this book. Something to do with creatures, with wolves. Nope, not at all. So this is set in modern day USA. I can't remember what state it's in specifically, it doesn't matter. It follows our main character, Cordelia, who goes by Red. She lives with her mother and father and older brother in this kind of small town, and everything's going fine. Her parents are, I know her mom is a Shakespeare professor. I can't remember what her dad does, but it's a very tight-knit family. They all love each other a lot. The dad is white, the mom is black, she's biracial. That becomes a focus point several times through the book. There's some sort of virus going around. A lot of people are dying, and Red is not your typical horror book heroine in that she has a brain and she uses it. And she loves horror movies. She watches a ton of scary movies, final girl type movies, and she knows what not to do. So she kind of takes charge of the family, and they decide they're going to go to their grandmother's house, who lives out in the woods, far away from people, so that this virus won't affect them, because the government is rounding people up and sending them into camps. And the last thing you want to do when there is a virus is to go around a ton of people. So they prepare. She's got all her tools. She's planning for food and stuff like that. And she's a great survivalist who's stuck with a family who sucks as far as like survival skills and common sense. We go back and forth in time a bit. So we're starting out, this plague, this virus has happened, the population has been decimated, and Red is alone going through the books. And then we go back in time when they're just hearing about this sickness starting and she's with her family. So it's pretty much these 2 timelines in how did she end up alone, what happened to the family. And it's surprisingly, I really like the first half more than the second half. In the first half, I'm like, yes, Red is smart. She's not like this Mary Sue type of like magical intelligence, but she uses common sense. She's like, I'm going to carry a weapon with me. We're not going to break off into separate groups. We're going to stay away from highways. Like, if you've watched any sort of apocalyptic movie, all the things that they teach you, she implements that in her daily life, and her family is not so great at it. She was likable until she wasn't, and then she was smart until she was dumb. Specifically to do with guns, like she would come across all these guns and she would throw them away and be like, no, I don't like guns. I don't touch guns. You better learn to touch guns if you want to survive. And she's so pragmatic in other areas. Other things felt like unrealistic and very awkward and weird too, in that, like, before I mentioned how race plays a huge part in this. Over half the population is gone. People are just trying to find food, just trying to survive. And like every character that she comes across, race is like the first thing, that she's half black. Like it's such a shocking thing that they're not worried about weapons or guns, or like, is she safe? Is she not safe? It felt so weird And I don't know what the author was trying to do with it. Who cares about race if you're trying to survive? Like, it felt so unrealistic and so awkward. This book, like the first half and the second half, the first half I was like 4 stars. The second half was like 2. So I think I ended up giving this 3. I definitely like her books that have more otherworldliness to them and more magic to them. Like even the Alice books, which that was the first book I read by her, that was set in this world, but there were so many otherworldly magical realism things to it. This didn't have that. This just kind of fell flat a bit for me. Cabin at the End of the World, I am halfway through, and it's fine. I like the premise a lot. The premise is really unique. There's a family who's vacationing at this cabin in the woods, and the 2 dads and the daughter Wen. The daughter is pretty young. I can't remember exactly, but she's out in the front yard one day. She's like catching grasshoppers, and this huge man named Leonard walks up to her, and they start talking, and he says, you know, your family is going to have to make a choice. I'm sorry we have to be here. I promise I'm not here to hurt you, blah, blah, blah. And she sees 3 other people walking up the yard. So she runs and tells her dad. They kind of they barricade themselves in this cabin. Strangers break in, tie them up, and say, we really don't want to hurt you guys. We're not here to hurt you. But here's what happened is, like, all 4 of us received visions, and we were shown the end of the world. And in order to prevent that, one member, your family has to choose one member to sacrifice themselves, and you have to kill that member. And only by doing that will the apocalypse be avoided, pretty much. That's where I've left off. And it's fine. Like, the writing is good and all. I just, for some reason that I can't even name, I'm really struggling to want to go back to it. Like, I'll read a few chapters and then I'll stop, and I don't feel the need to continue all that much. But I'm halfway through, so I'm gonna continue anyway because I want to see what happens. Dracula. About a third of the way through. This is interesting. We were talking before about Nosferatu and how I watched that movie and I'm like, that seems exactly like what is happening in here. I thought Nosferatu was a book originally. It's not. It's based on Dracula, but it wasn't, like, they didn't get permission to make a movie about this, so they had to call it something else, and they changed the names like slightly. So that makes complete sense. As I was like, how are these 2 books so closely related? Like, who copied who? And now I know. Oh my gosh, this book was $4.95. Jeez, $4.95. I don't think you could find a book nowadays originally for $4.95. Anyway, Dracula. So we start with Jonathan, character Jonathan, and he is a solicitor who is based in London, but his company sent him to Transylvania to meet Count Dracula, who lives in a big castle there. He's very wealthy, and he wants to buy a house in London to move there. So Jonathan is sent to kind of carry all the paperwork, get the signatures, answer any questions the Count has, pretty much be of service to him in any way he can. It doesn't take long before Jonathan starts to realize something might not be on the up and up with this Count, because the people who live in the area of the castle don't like talking about him, don't like going too close to the castle, kind of like cross themselves for safety. The animals behave really oddly there. There are 3 women who, when Jonathan dreams, or he thinks he's dreaming, or he's waking up from dreaming, are kind of like crouched over him and talking really oddly. There's a really creepy scene with something small like wiggling about in a bag that when Count Dracula won't give Jonathan to the women, he's like, take this, and it's implied that this is what they're kind of feeding on. It's probably a child. Very creepy scene. And Jonathan is not free to leave. He discovers that quickly. There's like what he thinks is either an animal or Count Dracula like crawling out of the windows and across the outside of the castle. We get all of that information from Jonathan's journal entries. And then later we're given the kind of next section of information from a sailor aboard, I think it's called the Demeter, which is a ship that is carrying cargo from Transylvania to London. And again, weird things start happening on these ships. Sailors start disappearing one by one. Animals start acting weird. There are bats. Eventually there are bats, as if that's like a weird thing. But things start happening, like people are disappearing and there's only one sailor left eventually. And the ship kind of crashes into, I think it's London. Next, we're given information in 2 letters between 2 friends, Lucy and Mina. One of them starts sleepwalking, just can't sleep. There are again weird animals, like dogs acting strangely, you know, like attacking the owners and then kind of cowering and whimpering. Bats again. And I think it's Mina. She's got like pinpricks of blood on her neck. Like, what's happening? And that's currently where I've stopped. So it's interesting. I like that we're given the book in these sections from like different characters, different point of views, and we're just kind of tracking Dracula's movements and seeing how he impacts everything around him, the people and the weather and the animals, and he just kind of carries this darkness that infects his surrounding area, like a storm kind of. It's good so far. October reading is complete. I finished the final 2 books of the month. I was hoping that we would end on a bit of a high note. Didn't really end up happening just because the beginning of the month, the middle of the month was a bit disappointing, and the last of the month kind of followed that trend. Okay, first we'll talk about this one. I think in the previous video, portion of the video, I discussed the plot and kind of what was going on. And I wasn't enjoying it too much, and I was kind of finding it difficult to articulate why. I figured it out. It's super repetitive. So it's a lot of knock, knock, let us in. No, we're not going to let you in. But please let us in. You really need to let us in. No, we're not going to let you in. Okay, they break in. You have to believe us. No, we're not going to believe you. You're crazy. But you need to believe us. No, we're not going to believe you. Do what we say. No, we're not going to do what you say. It is so repetitive. There's just not enough like meat in this to accommodate a book this size. And it's not a big, long book. But I think all that was in this was probably like a novella or a short story. I think it would have done so much better. It was more of a psychological horror, but it never got me to that point where it felt real or immersive enough for me to be at all emotionally compromised by what was going on or invested in it. I just didn't care. I found it pretty boring, actually. So this was another 2-star read. Dracula. Dracula was not at all what I either remember or was expecting. Like I said, I think I've only read like a kid's version of this when I was really young. So this is supposed to be like a classic horror tale. I'm wondering who nowadays would see it as horror, because I did not at all. This felt way more like a soap opera to me. So the first few chapters at the castle in Transylvania, where there's the 3 female vampires and Dracula's crawling all over, and there's like the baby in the bag. That part was creepy. And there was never another creepy part in it. Maybe a little bit on the ship, but once they got in London, it got so boring. This was like, okay, so I would be really interested to know what was going on in the author's time and in their country, because there's a lot the book has to say about men and women and how they should behave and the roles that they play. And I know some people think this is like a feminist tale. I find that really difficult to believe, just because the two women are like, I want to know how many times that poor dear was like, those words were found. It must be like over 100 times, because they're just, it's about these people who set out, you know, when Dracula comes to, I think it's London, right? I think it's London. They find out what he is. Van Helsing, this doctor, this professor, becomes involved. And then there's these like 3 or 4 other men, all who fell in love with this one woman. And everyone is so earnest and affectionate. And like, if you got the most touchy-feely people in the world and gather them into one room, they're so dramatic and they feel so strongly about everyone around them. It's it kind of like, it gets to the part where like it feels like it's campy, like it goes so over the top in emotional relationships that it gets to the point of being almost comical. It's very like flowery language, the way that everyone's talking about one another, and oh, you're my dearest friend, and I can't believe such purity exists in the world as you, and oh, you're the epitome of femininity, or oh, these strong, brave men, how we love them so. Like, it got pretty ridiculous. There's a few portions that made me laugh that I don't think were supposed to make me laugh. There's this one woman who keeps like, they keep leaving her alone. So she keeps getting like sucked dry. They come in the next morning and she looks super pale and super terrible. And so any of the men who are around, I think she goes through 4 different men giving her blood transfusions. And I guess they were all the same blood type, because it was never an issue. But it's like she gets like sucked dry during the night, and they come in, they're like, okay, here, take my blood. And she starts looking better, and then they say she cannot be left alone tonight. And something happens where she gets left alone during the night, and then she gets like sucked dry. Like, I kept like imagining her like as this corn husk, and like, it just felt kind of slapsticky to me. And I know it's not meant to, but I couldn't take it seriously. And it wasn't at all scary or frightening. I know this is a classic tale of horror. It's not about the jump scares. It's not about the gore. But I also just never felt any sense of really foreboding. Initially, I liked tracking Dracula because he was affecting these things around him. But the last 2/3 of the book is these 4 or 5 people telling each other how much they admire and love each other, and how they'll be your loyal servant until the day you die, and saying, we need to figure this out, we need to track him, we need to stop him. And it's just talking about how they're gonna do that, and very little happens. So some classic books, you read them and you're like, absolutely, I get why this is considered a classic. Like, it's beautiful. And then there are books for me, like this one, where I read it and I'm like, what's all the fuss about? Like, I'm sure looking back, it's had such an impact on a lot of other books and authors and the genre in general. And I would be very much interested to know, again, the author's intentions, because I could see this. It's always so complicated when books, you're like, you can see how the author might be misogynistic and saying like the only when one of the women has like a good idea, he says that she has the brain of a man. And there's so many things about like how don't tell her this upsetting news because she might have a heart attack and she might actually die. Or, you know, women's bodies, women's brains aren't meant to handle stress. So it could be that, or it could be that he was remarking on the fear of the time that he was living in, of women expressing their own emotions or their own sexuality or their own independence. Like, I have no idea. I feel like it could go either way. So I'm interested in learning more about the author. But because I did finish this, I'm able to choose another book to put on my list. And I've chosen this one. I recently hauled this, and I would very much like to read this next month. So I'm going to be choosing, because October is over tomorrow. I'm going to be choosing my November reads soon. This has been a really long reading vlog. Thank you for everyone who has stuck around. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these books. I'd be very interested. And I'll see you guys soon in November. Bye.